Greetings, friends. Happy Captain Picard Day. I must warn you that there are tons of spoilers for Star Trek Picard Episode 3 endings and beginnings, but in addition to that, there's a lot of speculation, some wild speculation at that, and a lot of discussion of the other episodes of Star Trek Picard and beyond. So you have been warned. Please attend carefully. If you're here for it all, we hope you enjoy, and we look forward to hearing what you thought. Welcome to Starfleet Boy, where we have a casual and informal discussion about our beloved series, Star Trek. Starting the recording.
Okay.
And just for sync purposes, let's do the clap anyways. So 1, 2, 3, clap. 1, 2, 3, clap. 1, 2, 3, clap. Perfect. Okay. I didn't see my claps on my end. I think I have the noise gate on. Shit. But I'll know.
Okay.
Oh no, damn it.
Okay, when I speak, I can see the thingy getting
the waveform.
The waveform. Yeah. That's pretty cool. So I like this.
Yeah, if it's distracting, you can always shrink your window. I think.
No, I like it. I mean, it's cool.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get to see what your levels are at and fix them if you want to. You can.
Am I too low?
No, I think you're actually perfect.
Okay.
Your waveforms look really good. So, we're back on another exciting episode of Starfleet Boy and Boat Trek. Did I say it right this time?
Well, I say boat wreck. People say boat trek.
Oh, that's right.
It really doesn't matter.
Wreck. Boat Trek. The love boat.
My channel is like a boat wreck.
It's one that I love being on, though. I love your boat wreck. Now the question is Picard a boat wreck? Not for me, but that's the question, right?
Well, one bad episode out of 3, so it's not a lost cause yet.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I actually am so kind of intrigued to hear your points. I've been trying my best to avoid both spoilers for Picard and spoilers about how people feel, but obviously, the internet's.
Yeah.
But I think I've managed to do that, so I'm excited to talk to you about everything. So what did we learn? What's going on? What is happening in Episode 3, endings and beginnings? Do you want to do the summary? Should we try to do it together?
We can do it together because I don't have anything written down. So you can jump in when I forget stuff, I guess, or vice versa.
And vice versa. Yeah, exactly. So we learned that 14... We've already known this, but we see depicted what happened 14 years ago in the beginning of this episode when JeanLuc tendered his resignation as a gambit to hopefully convince Starfleet and the Federation to act in a way that he thinks is noble, and many would agree, and go ahead and save the Romulans. He and Rafi, who we met very briefly in the previous episode, even have like a backup plan, and they mention other shipyards and other options that might actually work, but apparently the people who are in charge are, according to Picard, just to either one, they don't give a F about the Romulans and could care less what happens to them, or 2, they're just too scared to actually commit more resources, thinking that after this disaster, can we really afford to lose more lives or whatever? Because who knows, for reasons, right? We'll have to talk about that a little more.
Yeah.
But then But then, so Picard laments and is downloading Raffi, and then she gets a call from the CNC, and she assumes that this means she's going to be discharged or fired, as she puts it. Her ass is going to get fired from Starfleet, and so she's pissed and she walks away.
Which is so petty. It's so petty on Starfleet's end.
Yeah, it's really just there's a lot of weird, unexpected kind of behaviors from everyone, including JeanLuc. Not just this is different. This is like totally not just different, but unexpected in many ways. So yeah, a big source of like actual bewilderment for me as a participant of the audience, but not saying that's a bad thing. Not for me, anyways. Just saying it's definitely uncomfortable. So then we flash forward. Now I know there's a lot of going back to that cube, and I'm always bad at going at the cube. So if I'm not wrong, we flash forward to the cube, right? That's where we go next. No, we actually, after the credits, we're back with Raffi and Picard.
Yeah.
And actually, this is kind of cool because I did notice something that I liked structurally. Anyways, we're back with Raffi and Picard, and he's kind of updating her on the situation. He piqued her interest by talking about the Romulan Tal Shiar agents operating on Earth clandestinely and being possibly in league with the Federation, or complicit, as he puts it. And she's kind of a messed up person at this point. This is her 14 years later. She's way less composed. She was already a little not composed because obviously JeanLuc was giving her some pretty shitty news. But here she's just like a total wreck, a boat wreck, one might say. Sorry, I had to do that. And she smokes weed. She drinks alcohol. She says her little camper, her mobile home of the future, which I kind of love and wouldn't mind having one. We haven't seen the inside of it though. She says it's a hovel, so I imagine it's like, pretty messy, and she's not like, she doesn't care much for like, impressions, and and it doesn't look like she hosts people regularly. She's like pretty, solitary at this point. But anyways, she's pretty fucked up, and the thing I liked about this scene was in the previous scene she like storms off, very like kind of angry and pissed, and JeanLuc calls out her name 14 years ago. He's like, Raffi, but he stays sitting down. This time when she storms off after having another tirade with him, he screams Raffi, or he yells Raffi, and then he sits for a second, but then he gets up and he goes after her, which is different from how it was a cool parallel, like a reflection, if you will, of the previous scene and in this scene, how things can be different in the future or in the present.
Actually, it's implied the first time that she walked away 14 years ago was probably the very last time that they ever had any contact.
That they ever even had an interaction. And I didn't like, again, another thing that made me uncomfortable, but again, not that it's a bad aspect, it's just unexpected, was like, I didn't like that JeanLuc wouldn't contact her for 14 fucking years, but also it is, when you think about it, she's pretty terrible too, because I think he would have definitely been there for her if she needed him. I'm pretty sure based on like just, the way he talks to her and everything like that. But B, like he was going through pretty hard times too. And, I think those doors sometimes swing both ways, right? Like sometimes, both of them, I think, were being proud and stubborn and like, convinced that the other was wrong. And so I think that was tragic on both hands. But this time, this 14 years later, JeanLuc does something that I was very moved by, where he goes and it doesn't matter who's right or wrong. He admits that, what he did was terrible, that she has every right to feel the way she does. And like, he's very sorry. And like, even though she's like, I don't care, I think that's really meaningful. And I think it actually does touch her because obviously she, lets him stay a little bit longer. And they have like a back and forth, which kind of, I have to watch the episode again, but maybe you caught this a little bit better than I did. But they're basically talking about how like she was onto this plot like 14 years ago between a high-ranking Starfleet official and the Romulan Tal Shiar, or the Romulans, and that somehow the attack was sanctioned. So there was some kind of conspiracy going on, but JeanLuc doesn't seem to like believe it.
Yeah,
which
that's a problem.
Well, it's a little bit of a problem because he's definitely has a suspicious mind, but at the same, he's always blaming the Romulans on TNG for everything. But but please tell me why. Let's explore that. Why is it a problem for you?
In the 14-year ago flashback, you can kind of understand where he says, "Okay, Rafi, kind of doesn't make sense that the Romulans would be in on this to sabotage the rescue of their own people." Okay, makes sense at that time. And I'm going to jump ahead to this is like way late in the episode, but she finally brings it up again, she tells him, "I have concrete evidence of basically collusion between Starfleet."
No, that's this scene. That's not way later. That's the same scene we're talking about.
Oh, no.
She does. Oh, okay.
She actually she doesn't say anything about concrete evidence 14 years ago. He kind of brushes her off too soon, I guess.
No. I know, but like in the scene where he brings it up again later, 14 years later, when they're sitting on that little trunk or whatever in the desert, that's what she said. What you just said, that's when it happened. That's when she says it.
It's okay. 14 years ago, she brings it up. He brushes her off, right?
Right.
14 years later, when she's sitting on the rock and he's trying to get her to help him, she brings it up again, but this time she says she has concrete evidence.
Right.
Right? And what bothered me about this is that he dismisses it again, and when he should be actually saying, "Where's this evidence? Show me immediately," because that's what I was thinking. As soon as she said it, "I have concrete evidence," I was like, okay, we get to see this evidence now. Who's this? Who are the players here? And then he just brushes it off. And then 30 seconds later, he's like, "I need you because of the way you think in your mind and all this stuff," right? And I'm like, dude, this is it's sloppy writing in my opinion. It's just a way to delay the mystery of what she knows for sure that is not being revealed to us for some reason. And I find that frustrating. I'm sorry.
Well, I read the scene just a little bit differently. I see now what you're saying.
Yeah.
But when I like saw that same scene, my first instinct was that she was saying she has concrete evidence of the fact that these things happen, but not necessarily. And this should have been clearer. I agree with you on that. And maybe there was something that happened.
I'm sorry, I had to interrupt. I should be clear. He thinks at first she's talking about the current situation, but then she reiterates, no, she believes that the conspiracy about the Mars attack, and now she has concrete evidence, and that's what I meant. So,
my impression is that she knows that things happened concretely, like in the sense that like there's logs or whatever, but maybe the names of the people involved she doesn't know, and that should have been clarified. Do you know what I'm saying? Do you get what I'm saying? Like she has evidence that like collusion and all that stuff happened, but not who actually. Yeah. She just knows it's a high-ranking official.
But my argument is that I believe that Picard's ears should have perked up as soon as she said that, but he does the same thing he did 14 years ago and says, "Okay, no." But I need your mind anyway because you're really smart. It's like you just brushed her off again, dude. Like, come on, I want to hear this evidence. But we're gonna find out later. I think they're just dragging it out. Yeah. But
we'll find out what she knows. But I think maybe that's a good observation, and it could be. The only way I can see it being intentional is that maybe we'll find out also as they reveal more to us that like Rafi has come to him with like these concrete things before and they turn out to not pan out. So maybe he's conditioned, again, something that we don't know, but maybe he's conditioned to like just go like, okay, calm down. You're getting conspiracy theory. Because people who are like, who have those like unique minds in my, this is not like, this is just in my own like experiences, like working with like some really crazy smart people on like algorithms and computer related stuff. Sometimes they like also buy into these like wild conspiracy theories and it's kind of wonderful because I want to believe those things too. Like aliens are already on our planet. Like those are cool ideas. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So maybe there's a component of Rafi that we haven't yet seen and that they'll give us in a flashback that does this. But you're right. Absolutely. As the scene stands, it's a little, one wonders.
I got to note that Picard it's pretty evident then in this past 3 episodes that he is more stubborn than he's ever been, and he is a little more headstrong, and that could account for some of that, I suppose.
Right. Well, and also he's like, who knows, like what's happening. He's just getting he's like more impatient, which he's got
Laris yelling at him all the time in all 3 episodes.
It's true. Aside from the advanced aromatic syndrome, I think I mentioned this before, my dad does live with a diagnosis of dementia of some sort. It's not Alzheimer's, we don't think, thank goodness, but it's it's definitely, the mind is and I recognize a lot of interesting similarities in Picard's behavior to my own father's behavior, so I can relate to it in a weird way, I think. Or maybe I'm just, we all tend to like put ourselves into the things like the shows we love, so maybe I'm doing a little bit of that. But yeah, you're right, there's a lot of questions here. But anyways, what's the next scene after? Oh, she tells a most important thing from this is, but also another moment of like vulnerability and showing more of Rafi's character, I think, is she's like, at the end when he's about to leave, she's like, get the fuck out of here, go away, leave me alone. By the way, I got you a captain and a ship.
Well, that's not in that scene. That's later on. That's later on in the episode.
No, dude, you're that's that scene. It's in Vasquez Rocks 14 years after the opening scene, and when he's about to leave, I even challenge you to go watch it. If you have the download, go watch it, and you'll see at the end of that scene.
You're talking when she tells him I have a ship. That happens.
I'm talking right after the credits. This is the Vasquez. Oh, you're saying it skips to somewhere else and then comes back to this?
You got to remember.
And I'm messing it up.
This episode is full soap opera cut between this.
I left the Borg cube out again.
No, yeah, but
my head edit is so terrible. Like in my head edit, I just keep chopping the Borg cube out, which I don't mean to do because I loved seeing Hugh, and we'll talk about that later when we get to it. But I totally like cut it out. Like I just
that first scene when he's talking to her at Vasquez Rocks, that ends when she walks away and he yells out her name. Then it cuts to the Borg cube. Yeah.
The Borg cube. Okay, thank you, PJ. The video of this.
Let's not forget to mention that she vapes in that scene. How goddamn irresponsible.
I wrote something about. Did you see what I just quoted like a few minutes ago about that?
I did not.
So it's funny that you say that because it was kind of jarring to me at first too, and also Rios is smoking and a cigar and stuff like that, and it's something like I think we've only seen cigarette smoking like a couple times on Star Trek, and it's always like people who are like from the past that are less evolved, or whatever. And I think
Picard smokes in the holodeck in the Dixon Hill thing, and
he does.
And he actually chokes on the holographic smoke.
Oh, right, that's right, because he's not used to it. But there's been comments too, like, oh, people don't smoke. It's just smoking has never been really something that's depicted as a thing that future people do.
I can see aliens do it, like Klingon. I would accept a Klingon smoking some kind of weird Klingon cigar or something,
but they never do.
But human beings, I mean, well, come on, we're way past that. I mean,
look, honestly, so my tweet actually addresses this. Like, it's kind of. Alcohol's always been okay on Star Trek, and I think that's kind of, if you want to really look at it, like, why in the future, why does everyone, and some people don't even like synthahol, like Scotty can give no F's about synthahol, but no one ever smokes. So someone informed me that Gene Roddenberry actually had a thing against smoking, so it was like a personal thing that he put into Star Trek. But it's something that, like, not always, because I don't really like smoking or anything like that much. I definitely don't like smoking cigarettes. I do smoke weed from time to time, and I have vaped, but I stopped when I found out about all the stuff it does to your lungs, etc. But I think that, like, it doesn't bother me in the end, because I think future people would still smoke and vape and drink, and like even weirder things, like in Star Trek Discovery when they go to the Klingon homeworld and they're like freaking inhaling volcanic fumes to get high. Like, I don't think this is ever going to go away. I do think that, like, the difference is that, like, and the thing that's, like, kind of important to remember is that like, and what I like about it is that in a way, Star Trek especially does this, but like a lot of great TV shows hold a mirror up to society. And right now, these are kind of like, I know it might seem like hitting you over the head or whatever, but like right now, these are things that we actually deal with, like the vaping crisis, if you want to call it that. And
See,
you know,
that's exactly why the people who made this should have said, you know what, there's this vaping crisis where big tobacco are like ruining the lungs of children. And, you know, I know Rafi, you know, it's okay. It's basically a weed vape pen. Cool, whatever. I don't care that she's polluting her lungs, because in the future, you can just fix them. You know what I mean? Like, that's not a big issue.
That's true,
It's just the conscious decision to have somebody in that show haul out a vape pen and puff on it when for a show like Star Trek, it doesn't seem responsible. And I understand people are like, well, it's the future and it's snake leaf and it's not tobacco.
Another point I'd like to raise is that this is definitely not a show that I would show. I think I don't know what it's rated, do you know? But it's not a show that I would show someone younger than 15 or 16. Like, I think
it's 14A in Canada, and let's be honest.
Okay.
Let's be real here. Kids watch all kinds of stuff.
Well, okay, so I got to raise a concern. I think it's adorable, but Star Trek has been showing that young guy, the little kid, watching the episodes and then like commenting on it, right? But I really think this show is not appropriate for his age group. Like, he's like 7. And I think that like that's a really bad kind of call on Star Trek's part. It should, as much as I love this kid, they should have him watching like TNG episodes, or not even actually. They should have him watching like the animated series or something like that and reacting to that. But I think that like, so that's a public call out to Star Trek. I should probably do this on Twitter as well. But like, I think that I don't think that this show, my acceptance of what's being shown as a counterpoint to what you're saying, and I don't want to be argumentative, I apologize, but I think that this show is clearly not for a younger audience. So I think that like, it wouldn't be if it's being, and I know what you're saying, like that's not a perfect system, but you know, at the end of the day, also, I think parents need to be active in what their kids are watching, and I don't think anyone should just plop a kid in front of this show and let him watch it. There's a lot of adult themes, so I'm okay with the vaping. I also think it probably should be a higher, you know, whatever the mature. I think 14's a good age, actually. It's, you know, you're a young adult at that point, so yeah, I think that's fair.
Just a final point on the vaping thing. It is a huge point of contention for many people today, I noticed. Not many, but like a few people are really like, you know, what the F. But
well, it's jarring. It's jarring. I was actually like, I actually went through the same emotions. I think I came to this conclusion, but it's not. Yeah, it's not like a thing that was. It's a little strange. Yeah, but ultimately, I think ultimately I think it does a good thing for people who are dealing with like. I think the most important thing, sorry, one last thing on Rafi is she's way beyond just like a casual vapor or smoker or drinker. She's like fully addicted. She's an alcoholic. And I think that's an interesting thing to, again, for people dealing with addiction, to like have a character that they can like kind of like root for to get out of this situation.
I have a question for you about Rafi.
Yeah.
Do you have any theory as to why she's destitute and why it seems that she can't get help? And is this punishment for her, or what's going on that in this utopian society where every need is provided for, that she has to live in a shack and that she has to, is that her choice or was she put there? Like, I don't understand that. It seems
I would like it.
She envies Picard's vineyard and his big home and his oak pillars and all this stuff.
What I would like.
Sorry, go ahead.
What I would like. Well, no, sorry, I didn't mean to keep interrupting you. There's a little sync thing.
Yeah, I was finished. Go ahead.
But what I would like is what you said earlier, which is she's doing this to herself. I don't think it's a matter of like. I don't think like I do think that like. Song. Which one?
You do it to yourself.
Sort of, in a sense, like imagine a society that's so free that you're also free to self-destruct.
And that's
in a
what
way,
really hurts.
if that makes in a way, if you think about it, now her jealousy towards Picard, I think that's more spite than jealousy. I think she's just throwing in his face that he comes from privilege, because I think privilege doesn't necessarily mean having a mansion or a chateau or anything like that, but to a degree, it means that like you aren't self-loathing, and you know, like, although he is to a degree now, but you know, there's other ways, more nuanced ways of looking at privilege, and maybe she doesn't see herself as privileged, and part of that might be that maybe she doesn't see herself being able to control her need for these substances. She mentioned she goes down a rabbit hole. She's a very tragic character, but someone that I can relate to, because I mean, I'm 40 years old. Like, I've definitely gone down the binge drinking route when I was much younger, you know, like going out to the club, drinking so much that you black out. Like, I don't, thank goodness, like, and I credit Star Trek for this, that like I was able to see where the precipice is, so to speak, and like I was able to recognize and kind of like change my behavior. But Rafi, for whatever reason, can't do that, but she's also insanely brilliant, you know. So she's a complex. I like her character. She's a complex character.
That's the tragedy of her. I believe she can totally get help, and she can totally be cured of whatever's wrong with her. But like she is probably so self-loathing that she just refuses, and she complains about the shack. Basically, it's embarrassing to her, but it's really her choice. So she is kind of messed up. And it is true, she is kind of brilliant, and I want throughout the series for her to be taken more seriously by Picard, for one thing, because she knows what she's talking about. And I think going forward, anybody she is suspicious of, I'm going to be suspicious of, because I trust her instincts, right. And I'm rooting for her because she is kind of the underdog. I can understand why people are just like, why is she like a poor person in this society? But yes, you could say it's by choice.
I like this whole series seems to be about twins and reflections and mirrors, and I don't know if they're taking that metaphor like again and hitting us over the head over it. But look at look at their counterparts. Like Rafi was chief of operations, or like, you know, she was into operations and she specialized in security. She even laments about losing her security clearance, and you know, her counterpart would be O, who's the head of Starfleet security. Rafi could have one day been the head of Starfleet security if you know, she didn't, like, if she kept at it, like if she's, you know, if she kept in Starfleet. But she leaned on JeanLuc. When JeanLuc couldn't be there for her anymore, she lost her way and blames him for it, which is also, again, not something that he should be blamed for, because she has it within her own power, which is something that Star Trek, the Federation, Starfleet kind of tries to imbue on you, is that you are the master of your destiny. And then JeanLuc's counterpart is the CNC. JeanLuc could have been like the CNC of Starfleet at this point, the way his trajectory was with his career, but he put his whole career on the line and left Starfleet because, you know, they accepted his resignation. So he didn't fight for his job back. He didn't, like, you know, and she says to him in that earlier scene, like, you know, aren't you going to do one of those like things that you do, JL? Like, well, you know, like those crazy, you know, he decided that was it. And he says it in the last episode, like he was nursing his bruised pride or whatever. And instead of like acting, because he could have called out, imagine how many people would be loyal. Like, he's talking, I hate to put it in that term, but like he could have easily probably have mustered enough loyal captains to create a real serious like event in Starfleet, like a coup, like a mutiny, but mutinies are unheard of, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like he could have successfully done something, but he chooses not to. He's kind of like upset that Starfleet's this way, and then he goes off and writes his books, as she puts it. So it's tragic in a lot of ways. Like, I think that both characters have these like bad kind of mistakes they made in their past, and now we're seeing the repercussions of them, or the correction, them coming to terms with it and hopefully correcting them, which I think ultimately is what we're going to get. That was crazy. We haven't even gotten to the Borg cube yet. I'm sorry. But I love this discussion. You're you're
Well,
triggering some good like thoughts.
well, in the Borg cube, we meet Hugh for the first time.
I was very happy to see Hugh. What did you think?
Well, sir. You're not gonna like me because
That's okay.
I thought the character was quite dull, and I thought the acting from Jonathan Del was like, okay.
Really?
I felt nothing. Okay, the first thing that happens is he's watching surveillance of Soji talking to the Nameless, right?
Right.
He sees that she's speaking in the language of the Nameless. He knows this for some reason. I don't know how he knows that she's speaking in their language if they don't even know the name of the species. Now, you would think if she knew how to speak the language, she would know what they call themselves. That's weird. I don't quite get that. And then, of course, that's only a thing that leads to him going to her and saying, I like you. You got moxie, kid. You want that? you want that interview you've been asking for? You got it. That's okay. I like that they're meeting and there's a relationship there. I like seeing him. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like I hate seeing Hugh. I mean, it's great, but that scene didn't do nothing for me.
We only get. I will say the scene wasn't like it definitely. When I first see him, of course, like I like Jonathan Del Arco and I love the character of Hugh, so it definitely struck some like emotions. But I agree that it didn't have anything to do necessarily with what we saw on screen. From like he wasn't doing something awesome. In other words, he was just watching a surveillance video, as you said, and being kind of like ordinary. But I think we're going to see some good acting from Jonathan Del Arco. I think that I saw this interview where he said that when he played Hugh, he was, I don't know if I saw it or I read it, but I sometimes hear their voices in my head. But I definitely remember reading or something where he said when he played Hugh, he was honoring a friend of his who had died. And that when he played Hugh this time, he totally is changing it up, and it's more coming from himself in a different way. He's not channeling that person anymore. It's a different Hugh. So I think that it was cool to see Hugh again. We just haven't seen him do his thing yet, which we don't even know what his thing is because he's only been around he only came up in 2 episodes, and he does do like. Back then he's a Borg that hadn't been like unassimilated, or what are they calling it? Reclaimed, I guess.
Yeah.
And so he was still acting very Borg also. And he had that like voice. So it is different to hear him just sounding like a regular person. I'm also curious to see, you're a fan of Voyager, right?
Yeah, the 7 of 9 show. Yeah.
But you like 7 of 9. You like that character, right?
I like everything about Voyager with 7 of 9 in it.
Okay, cool. That's really good.
I like some of Voyager besides that, but not much.
Well, I'll be curious to see how 7 of 9 comes on the screen. It looks like she's going to be like, pretty cool.
They spilled the beans with that marketing, man. They showed us like episodes down the line, man. Like we're not even close to some of the things we saw in the
right. I actually thought we were going to see Riker. I for some reason I thought we were going to see Riker and Troy in this episode. I like the pace. I think it's great. I really like it. I mean, I'm anxious. Like I definitely want to get ahead, but like skipping ahead a little bit because who cares? The trailer for the next episode, like baby Elnor, if you want to call him that, kid Elnor, that's cool. I didn't realize that there was a relationship from the past, so that's going to be interesting to see and stuff like that. But so we get this.
I'm curious to know what else did Picard do that garnered him all of this praise.
I know.
We don't know. We don't know what that thing was yet.
She says, like, in such a passionate way, Laris, like, we don't forget what you did. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he must have done something. And there is the hint of that. He had to have
gone rogue after that thing. After that incident with Rafi, he, like, did something.
And then, yeah.
Hopefully LaForge was involved and we get to see what it was.
Yeah, that would be really cool. I'd love to see all of them. Now... They served. Have you read the Countdown comics, right, PJ?
Yeah.
They served on the Verity together. Is that what the name of the ship was?
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure if you didn't know anything about the comics, you wouldn't really know that Rafi was his first officer on the Verity because none of that is mentioned. I don't think.
Is even said. Maybe we'll see the Verity, and they're saving that for next. It's like,
that's the dream scene I want to see. If Picard is getting all this praise, right, in previews of later episodes, in these Romulan villages and whatnot, then wouldn't it be a perfect thing? Because the Verity is huge. That he would just pack that thing to the brim, take every single one he could save. And just because he did that, obviously he would be a hero. Even if he couldn't save like 95% of whoever else.
Like,
which is
maybe
tragic.
He actually, who knows? Like, that's the cool thing is like, I believe in Picard too. I hope he did something amazing. So we get this character named Ramda. Is that her name? But we don't meet her yet, or do we, in this scene?
No.
We do, I think.
We cut back to Vasquez Rocks after that conversation between...
And that's when she tells him... That's when they sit on the thing and all that stuff that we were talking about earlier. And then she tells him, I have a captain and a ship for you, and they'll be in touch.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
cool.
then I think the next scene... The next scene is Okinawa Daystream Institute.
And creepy Commodore O... in her sunglasses.
Yeah, mirror universe Commodore. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like what are they suggesting with the sunglasses? I mean, I know that sometimes like FBI or like CIA agents will wear sunglasses when they're meeting people because you're not supposed to show your eyes are very telling, and so maybe that's the reason why that's happening, but I don't know. It was a little funny. I like her though. I like she's just such a weird, crazy character. I don't know. Like,
yeah, if she had a long mustache, she'd be twirling it 24/7.
For sure. Oh my god. What was the voice you did earlier? She here, Dr. Girardi. I want you to tell me the whole story about what you and Picard spoke about.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Why did you spill your beans? By the way, I'd like to take a moment to shout you out for doing a pretty awesome job at the Cheeky Feckers challenge.
I deleted it. I thought it sucked.
Oh, you did? Oh, that's. I'm glad I saw it then. I'm glad I saw that before you deleted. Audience,
I can't wait till we get to the point where we're talking about the Irish. What's EMH?
EMH. Well, that whole thing's here. Yeah, let's not skip ahead because I want to try to get these like scenes because they're so dense. I want to try to get through them in order, and you seem to have a good job of remembering the order.
Every time I see Dr. Girardi, and the more I see her, and the more I look at her, the more I start thinking, "Oh my God, it's Maddox. That's Maddox."
You just gave me like goosebumps. No, it can't be Maddox.
Oh, if you think, okay, look at back in Discovery times, man, they changed a Klingon to a human very convincingly.
Well, I mean,
why couldn't
it would be
they could actually I believe
gender reassignment is not even a thing that you have to like. No one cares about it. No one even worries about it in the future.
Not even gender reassignment. Not even it's not even a trans thing necessarily. It could be like a total like brain switch or something. Like maybe she has a product, like she's a synth or something, and it's like the schizoid man, but it's really
I like it.
Maddox's consciousness inside of her.
PJ, you and Sean come up with these crazy ideas that always give me goosebumps, and I think you should figure out a way to become Star Trek writers. I love it.
But there's another theory I have about when Commodore O visits her, and we don't see what happens. Perhaps like
it was a little
she was perfectly innocent, right? Like maybe up to this point she was the genuine article, but after that meeting, maybe Commodore O did a little like Borg inside her neck, little mind suggestion. You work for me now, blah blah blah. Yes, I'm your sleeper agent.
What? That begs the question. Okay, we can skip a little bit, but
she shows up.
Going back to the secret of the Romulans. I thought it was really interesting that I know I'm skipping ahead, but when they do the tarot card reading and Ramda, what? Why are you laughing? You hated that?
Oh my god! I wanted to blow my brains out watching those scenes. Like it was for one thing, it was annoying that it was cutting back and forth between the vineyard and the cube, like every 30 seconds or something like that. And it was only to have both characters each time say, "She is the destroyer," at the same time, like in some dramatic climax. And it totally didn't work for me anyway.
Really?
It came across as very exhausting and tedious. And
oh, man.
I didn't really like some parts of this episode. Sorry.
I must be susceptible to soap opera stuff. I mean, Star Trek's always been a little bit space opera, right? But I think that I totally ate that stuff up. I was like the opposite. I was like, kind of like.
If you could insert a musical cue for the end of almost every scene in this episode, would be dun dun dun, next scene, dun dun dun, next scene.
Steven Spielberg was invited over to Stanley Kubrick's house for dinner, and Stanley Kubrick asked him to be honest and tell him, what do you think about The Shining? And I'm gonna fuck this up, so anyone who actually knows this story really well, I apologize in advance, but I'm gonna paraphrase or whatever. But anyways, Steven's like, I don't know, I didn't really like it, Stanley. And Stanley's like, well, can you be specific? What didn't you like about it? He's like, I guess I thought that Jack Nicholson was performing that character a little over the top. It was a little too over the top for me. And so Stanley's like, oh, okay, I see. And so a little later down the dinner, he asked Steven Spielberg, who are your favorite actors, of all time? And Steven Spielberg goes on to name his list of actors. They're all very serious, very very understated, or very just, for lack of a better word, realistic performers. And then Stanley Kubrick says, well, my favorite actors are James Cagney and blah, blah, blah. All these over the top actors. So we have to remember, the moral of that little aside is that ultimately the people making it inform how the characters are going to be. So I wonder who Hanley Culpepper's favorite performers are. So
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Was I supposed to do anything on my end in the recording process?
No, isn't that great?
So I didn't have to hit any record buttons or nothing like that.
No,
I just making sure. Just making sure. I can see your wave thing, and I can see my wave thing. I was just making sure it was both. It was recording both. It's pretty cool system together.
Isn't this great? It's not my system, by the way. Should we give it an unsolicited mention on Starfleet Boy?
Go ahead. You are recording using blah blah blah.
I'm recording today using this cool application called Zencaster, and that's Zencastr.com. You send your guest a link, and then they don't have to do anything. They don't have to record their audio separately. They don't have to email you their audio. They don't have to worry about, all the settings and everything. They just have to sit back and be a great guest, just like PJ's being right now. And then later on in post-production, you can either have a mix sent over to you where the two audios are compressed into one, and it can be an MP3 or whatever, or you can download the two audio formats as WAV files. and you get an awesome audio thing. So I highly recommend it if you like podcasting. This is the first time I'm going to sync the audio with video, so this will be interesting to find. And Starfleet Boy has always been very experimental. But this is a whole new level. I hope you appreciate not having to do all the technical stuff and just being able to relax. I love that you got nervous. Like, wait, was I supposed to hit record? Yeah. Also, there's a thing that you can raise your hand. I'm curious what happens on your end when I do this. I just raised my hand. Did you see it?
Raise your hand. No.
Did the little hand above my microphone turn yellow?
No.
Nothing happened?
Oh, yeah, it changed, yeah.
So that's like a nice way of saying, hey, I want to say something instead of interrupting. So I'm going to try to use that when
yeah, cool.
Yeah, isn't that cool? And then you notice that it's yellow and you're like, oh, guest, go ahead. Whatever.
It doesn't look yellow. It looks some kind of solid color and then white.
Like a solid color, yeah. So feel free, PJ, to raise your hand if I don't hear you.
Can you see mine?
Oh, I saw it. Yeah, I saw it.
It's yellow very on my end, yeah.
That's so cool. All right, enough of this unsolicited thing. So we were talking about Ramda, and then so one thing that they revealed to us is that there's like a group of Romulans from a ship that were assimilated, and it was the last group of people that this Borg ship had assimilated before the Matrix shutdown. What's it called? Do you remember how they technobabbled that one?
Let me see.
Matrix collapse, I think they call it, or something like that. A sub-matrix collapse, or something like that. I forget.
Yeah, something like that.
They mentioned that same thing in the last episode. But anyways, something about these Romulans caused the Borg to freak out or short circuit, and so now I'm thinking Romulans left Vulcans like thousands of years ago. I don't remember if it's thousands, but at least 1,000+ years ago, and went off somewhere else. And then I don't think it's like what we call canon, but the Romulans seem to be on the edge of the Beta Quadrant where the Borg might be like a line of defense with the Borg. But we don't actually know what the Borg's origins are. At least I don't remember. Maybe your Voyager knowledge.
In regards to that scene where they walk into like the romper room, where all the mental patients basically, because what happened was, you're right, these were the last. What Hugh says is that these were the only Romulans ever assimilated, as far as he knows. That's not true. He
knows, right?
That's not true, because in Voyager we see one, I think.
Oh, gotcha.
But anyway.
But as far as he knows, it's accurate in the sense that, as far as he knows, it might be true. Yeah. So I like that.
So the thing is that when these particular Romulans, who presumably were the only ones ever assimilated, something with the Romulan mixing with the Borg disabled the Borg. But it also had an adverse effect on
the Romulans.
The Romulans, because all drones aren't, that messed up, basically. You know what I mean? So,
right. Hugh is an example of like a reclaimed Borg that's not messed up. But these guys, and they're called the Abnormals or something. I forget what she calls them. They're called like the.
Wait, I got it here.
I don't think it was the Abnormals. That was probably bad to say.
They're called the Disordered.
The Disordered, yes. That's interesting.
This little thing implies a little something and brings up a little clue as to this whole thing about ancient Romulans and fear of synthetic life over thousands of years, or something like that.
Yeah. What do you think? Where do you think it's going? Or I have no idea. I can't even imagine what it could be. But I'd love to know if you have any theories.
Perhaps I know I rejected this theory at first, but it's going around that perhaps the Romulans were responsible for the creation of the Borg so many years ago, with probably the best intentions. However, something happened, and for whatever reason, the the Borg avoided Romulans for so many years, or they just didn't get a chance to assimilate them. But when this happened with these Borg in this episode, these Romulans in this episode, everything, went to shit. So there's some kind of historical reason, I think, for why Romulan DNA and Borg technology
clash.
Clash. Yeah, that's the word.
It is an interesting thing. By the way, I love the tarot cards. I want that. I hope they sell that. It's a cool thing. So I know we're skipping. We're supposed to go back to the chateau, and we get a scene. Oh no! Don't we get Picard? Yeah, don't we get Picard? Next, we get Picard visiting Rios on the La Serena. No? Oh, no. Sorry.
The episode's it cuts a lot between scenes. Right after that, she introduces herself to the mystic, the Romulan mystic woman, and then it cuts.
I like that the way you put that. By the way, she is a mystic. She's totally she's got the Agra vibe from whatchamacallit.
The next scene is a scene I actually really like. It's probably
go ahead.
It's probably the only scene I actually chuckled at, right? Rafi is out at her trailer. She gets a transmission from Picard, and he's like, "Here are the files on Dr. Maddox." And
that's right. That was a good. He's like, "Carry on."
Actually, at first he goes, "You're doing your research, are you? I'm sending you everything at that Daystrom had on Bruce Maddox." And then she replies, "What'd she say? I don't want it."
Like fuck you, basically.
And then he goes, "Carry on," and click. I like that part. That's good.
He knows her really well. It is a cool scene.
He knows that she has an insatiable curiosity for this whole investigation.
Is that the scene, or is there another scene where we get the free cloud or whatever it's called?
No, the very next scene is where he meets Rios.
Oh, okay, cool. Loved the whole scene. That's all I'm gonna say. Love the EMH, the crazy. Captain Rios is crazy. He's batshit crazy. I love him. He's also. I don't know. I don't know how you'll. What your opinion is? He's hot as fuck. He's very sexy. So is the EMH character. I love the whole thing where Picard's like calls him out and he's like, your ship is like in Starfleet impeccable, like ship shape and Bristol fashion, as Picard would have said, as he did say before in TNG. But go ahead.
Can I say something a little naughty?
Yeah.
If you told Rios to go fuck himself, he probably would.
He could. It's true. He might. We don't know how weird he is. Yeah. It could get lonely on that starship.
Rios is an example of a character I actually really do like. I like his interaction with Picard. I like the chemistry between them. But at the same time, I absolutely hate the I don't know what the word is, dumb way they present him with the thing sticking out of his thing, and
you thought that was dumb? I thought that was cool.
He flicks the alcohol on it, and
I loved all that shit.
When the EMH takes it out, he doesn't even want it. He doesn't even heal it. He puts it okay. There's a lot of ways to show a dude is a badass or whatever, but I thought that was just throwing everything but the kitchen sink to show you what a badass he is, when in fact there's a later scene with him when he's talking to his other EMH who has an Irish accent. One has a British accent, one has an Irish accent.
They were different, right? Because he gets these holograms to do everything from navigation to that's right. He's fucked up. He's crazy. He could have a threesome with himself. He's a total narcissist. Not to take it there again, but oh my god, how many Rioses are there on the ship? He is pretty nuts. That scene where he's talking to the Irish EMH as opposed to the British one, that's a really cool subtle distinction that I didn't even realize. I thought actually they were the same character, but you're right, they're probably different.
Rios speaks with a Chilean accent.
Chilean accent, yeah.
The doctor speaks with a British accent, and the engineer, I guess, speaks.
Wow,
with
so
a
we're gonna
Irish
see some
accent.
really interesting acting from Santiago Cabrera. That's gonna be pretty cool, and he's doing a good job so far. So kudos to Santiago, in my opinion. I have to say though that I like the kind of vulnerability that we get an insight into Rio. Like it's a device. It's pretty obvious, but it worked on me. Of like getting us to see who he is with very little effort of like him interacting with people, because he's like the way just
and
like
you know what you got to look at you got to go back and watch this episode, right? Freeze frame on the shot of him lighting the cigar with his shirt off with the thing sticking out of his thing. It's like, let's do everything we can to make him look like Wolverine. He looks
interesting.
If you squinted your eyes, you would think it was Hugh Jackman in
is
X-Men.
Wolverine. Oh, that's very interesting. I didn't catch that, but that makes some sense.
And you know, he's a good actor. I noticed that right off the bat. I just thought like the choice with the thing and the I mean, I get it. Maybe if he was injured and the EMH was working on him, but it's just over the top with the cigar, and it's no need. You can. There's ways you can show somebody's a badass in 2399 without reverting him to such modern tropes that are quite frankly annoying.
There are some interesting stereotypes here, and Star Trek kind of does this. Like, you know, the original series did it even more. Like, you know, how Chekhov is very Russian and Sulu's very you know, like American, but Japanese American, if you will. And there's a lot of interesting kind of like things where they use stereotypes, and I feel like that's a little bit happening here. I grew up in Miami. I don't know if you know or remember that. I think I've probably mentioned it before, and that's where I live right now. So I grew up like around a lot of different, like basically I grew up an honorary Cuban. There's a huge Cuban population here. But there's also lots of other, I think the correct term right now is Latinx. I'm not sure, but we used to say Hispanic. Latinx, thank you. But we used to say Hispanic, so I'd like to use the correct term. I'm just not educated, and I apologize for that. But anyways, there's a lot of like South American and other Latinx peoples in Miami, and lots of Chileans too, and we have great Chilean food, by the way, and you know, so I've been exposed to a lot of Latinx Hispanic culture, and smoking and drinking aguardiente and smoking a cigar is a huge part of the culture, and I love it. It's a delightful part of the culture. I've definitely had a great time at parties smoking a cigar with my Hispanic Latinx friends. And you know, sometimes it's tequila, sometimes it's aguardiente, sometimes it's rum, but there's always like a quality of like, you know, drink to have fun, and these are very like, while they're stereotypes, they're also very delightful qualities of these cultures in my eyes. So I don't know, I have mixed feelings about it.
So you like the interaction between him and Picard, that initial meeting?
Yeah, I loved it.
That was one of the highlights of an otherwise disappointing episode.
Oh man! Wow, we're so opposite, but that's what I like about
the episode. Has a decent middle, I find, and then you know, we'll get into
that ending. Come on, PJ, that ending. Come on, did you not get the feels? We'll talk about it when we get there, but tell me you got the feels, even for a moment, even if you didn't like it later, but that moment when it actually happened, when you first saw it, it's just kind of like special, you know?
I always love the musical cues in the show. Like, the music is one of the best aspects of the show, actually. But his ship looks butt ugly.
Engage. Okay, so here's why I like the ship. It reminds me of my Honda Civic. It totally feels like I'm in La Serena. Is that what it's called?
The La Serena.
The La Serena. It feels like I'm in my... Today when I was driving in traffic, it was a little more fun because I just imagined I was Captain Rios driving the La Serena. and it was less painful to sit in traffic. Can you tell I'm a fantasist? I would probably have multiple me's on my ship as well. You can't see my facial expression, but it's...
No.
I thought I made a funny joke, but I didn't. Anyway...
there's a scene the next scene where Rafi is looking at information on a screen. There's a weird thing where it says crypto algorithm identification Gorn egg.
Yeah, what was that all about?
Yeah,
I did notice that actually. What do you think? Speculation, Commander. Speculation, Captain.
The next shot it zooms in on. It says type : quantum fingerprint origin free cloud, and then it has all this stuff. So they got to go to free cloud, and then like it looks like an internet ad pops up with dice, like that. It's like okay, so they're off to Canto Bite, I guess. I don't know.
I don't think that. Do you think that's what free cloud's gonna be? I got the impression that it might be like
some kind of Romulan settlement. I think, judging by the preview of the next episode, where like a lot of gambling goes on, maybe. Or contests, or I don't
interesting.
know. I don't know. Romulan cockfighting. I don't fucking know. It's weird.
It'll be interesting to find it. But we're actually seeing more of the universe. Like it is kind of, again, it's for me, it's at once kind of like jarring, but also kind of cool to see things outside of the perspective of the Federation and of Starfleet. We're seeing like a Star Trek that's always
very,
been there.
very gradually seeing it. Very, very
gradually seeing it. I mean, DS9, to its credit, definitely like opened up the Star Trek universe even more than it had been, and this feels, tonally very similar. There's a degree of like weirdness is the best way I can describe it that I'm not used to seeing regularly on Star Trek, or that I don't associate is a better way of putting it with Star Trek. So she does that free cloud thing, and she's like, okay, so then that's it with that scene. And then the next scene is back on the cube or back at the chateau?
No, it's on Rios. It's Rios's quarters. And
then he has the moment with the other
the EMH, and he's like, are you a teeny bit starstruck? It's JeanLuc Picard. And I like all the stuff he names off. He names off, like, I got to read it. Hold on. Chief contact with the Q continuum, I'm not going to do the accent. Arbiter of succession for the Klingon Empire. Savior of Earth from Borg invasion. Captain of the Enterprise D and E. And he says, the man even worked alongside the great Spock. I like that.
Right.
I like that. And I like this EMH. And I like these EMHs are like kind of like therapeutic for him. He could actually tell them to go away at any time, but he puts up with them and he kind of wants to see what they have to say. And he
doesn't go crazy.
This indicates that Rios is definitely an ex-Starfleet, which was brought up earlier. We didn't mention that. And that he is probably a really big fanboy of Picard. And that's probably the sole reason he's taking him on. Like, you know.
And, it's more like, who wouldn't... This is going back to this idea of like, who wouldn't fucking help JeanLuc fucking Picard if he needs it? Like, it's the thing. We also learned of that he's a tragic character in another way. So, I have a question for you. So the first one is definitely the medical one. So it's the EMH. He says the navigational emergency is over to the second one. So what if he's the EN as in Nancy H, the emergency navigational hologram, the second one?
Yeah.
That would be interesting if they make distinctions like that. I don't think they did that in the episode though. But anyways, we learned that Rios lost his captain, and then also something about Starfleet doing a discovery on his ship, which kind of I like, because then it makes you know what I mean? Like he says that Starfleet took the ship off the record.
Oh yeah. Well, he says, I already had one grand heroic captain in my life. The last thing I need is another one.
Right.
10 years earlier, on, I still can't close my eyes at night without seeing the last one's blood and brains splattered all over a bulkhead. Yeah. So that's pretty intense. Intense
stuff. Yeah. And traumatic. Like he's dealing with trauma. But I think that Picard, and you know, that makes sense. Do you think would 10 years ago have lined up? Oh, I guess it doesn't line up with anything really, but like it could have been easily anyone who survived the Dominion War for example. You know what I mean? Like, or...
Well, it was 2389 that this happened, so...
Right. This is after
whatever's going on then. After the Hobus supernova.
It's the unknown territories. It's stuff we're finding out through flashbacks. I would love it if we had flashbacks from different characters' perspectives as well, not just Picard. So far, they've all centered around his perspective, but it would be neat to get like the backstories. Like we're gonna get Eleanor's backstory from what it looks like in the next episode, and so it looks like he's known Picard since he was a kid, which is pretty interesting as well. But Rios is a great character. I just instantly fell in love with him, instantly intrigued. If anything, I think that was one of the things about this episode that was a highlight. As you said, like the middle for you was good, but for me, that was definitely a highlight among highlights. Now we go back to the Borg cube.
No.
Oh, we go back to the vineyard.
Yeah, it's Picard having that conversation with Laris.
With Laris. Yeah, it's a sweet moment too, where she's like, "Are you gonna miss any of this?" And he's like, "Well, I'll miss you and Zhaban and number one."
You did never see number one, and I don't think in this episode or the last.
I think I saw or read somewhere that he was actually a difficult dog to work with, so they had to limit. They wanted him in more scenes. What's that?
He was green. He wasn't. He
was green. Yeah,
he wasn't an actor dog, and they wanted to put him in more scenes, but it was just too much to.
Too much. I would love to see the outtakes. It'd be great if, like, at the end of the season, you get like the outtakes and look from the whole season, and you just see everyone trying really hard to like work with this poor dog. Yeah. But it's okay. We can imagine. He's so cute that he's memorable enough to imagine him.
The next scene is on the Borg cube,
and this is where now it starts to parallel.
It intercuts between this, now in the vineyard for like 5-10 minutes.
It's a tighter back and forth, where as Dodge is interrogating. Let's go back.
Well, so first Soji is sitting down to try to...
Dodge, I called her. Oh, my God. The other Dodge. Soji. So, yeah, Soji's trying to interview her, and she like does the right things. She's like a know-it-all, as Hugh says. She seems to like know all these things that she shouldn't really know, and she doesn't really understand why she knows them as well. And one of those things is like she realizes that the card that represents the front door or the door is meant to be the false. Has the false front door on Romulan homes ever been mentioned before? Is that something new? Because it felt like something I remembered, but I could have just been.
Maybe I'm not sure. Somebody will point that out or make a contradiction of some sort.
100%.
The whole point of that was that it was a way for Soji to figure out how to. Gain access to her, because she goes behind her and asks permission, and then she says yes. So she's yes, going to the back door. Yeah.
And if this was Drunk Space Nine, we would make a lot of jokes about that. But anyways, she gets permission,
and then it cuts right back to the vineyard. Zhaban walks in, not even like 3 seconds later. Boom, boom, boom! Big action scene.
Before that, I gotta tell you the little travel pack that he prepares. It also melted my heart, just because I really love terrines and patés, and I love cheese and wine, and so like it just felt like so cute, like I don't know, so like homey that Zhaban's packing him this like day bag to go on his space mission, and it has like a baguette and terrines and like all these things, and he's like so proud. He's like, I went and from Madame blah blah blah, I collected her world famous terrine, which is better than any that you would get in a replicator, you know, all this stuff, and then all of a sudden,
like real food.
Right, and then all of a sudden the pew 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 scene happens, and it's pretty. I have to say. And I don't know. Well, I'd love to know how you feel, but I liked the directing of it, and the action felt really crazy. Like they slammed, like it felt like stuff was at stake. Like they slammed Laris against a window, and the window breaks, and Picard actually gets thrown over a table. I was really fucking nervous about that. And then What? Why are you laughing? Because you hated it.
No,
You hated
no.
the whole scene. Oh.
It was intense, and I was like, when he got thrown over the thing, I was like, oh shit, but I'm laughing because it's like 2 seconds later, it was like nothing happened. But
Well, that's typical. Like, I mean, that's come on. Like, they should have been bruised up and in pain, and like, you're absolutely right about that. Like, they're all just like, they're all cyber people. They're all synthetics. That's why they don't feel pain in the same way. Or future people are bionic. I don't know. But anyways, you're absolutely right. Everything was okay after that. But then but I still loved when Picard grabs this like blaster or phaser, I guess, which I didn't get a chance to get a good look at because I wanted to really see it because it's a modern phaser, but it looked pistol type, right? Like it kind of had a pistol vibe to it instead of the usual TNG style. Or the last style that we've seen. So anyways, he grabs that and he like basically shoots his Romulan down. They all like knock out their Romulans and they're just taking a breath for a moment. And then this other one comes in and someone shoots it from off frame and then it's Agnes Jurati, right? And she's like, that was on stun, right? And then I have a feeling they're going to go off on this, but Lara says there's no stun settings on Romulan blasters. For sure someone's gonna find a reference to a stun setting on Romulan blaster. I felt like that was all these like final statements Laris makes, everyone's gonna be like, I gotta go look this up. Look this up. By the way, I officially declare myself a cheeky fecker. I'm a huge fan of Orla. Is it Orla Brady and the character of Laris? I really love that character.
Yeah, I like her.
So,
I like her and Jiban. I like them both.
Yeah, they're great. My sister was suspicious of them in the previous episode. I don't think I've ever really... I wondered, but I wasn't suspicious. I just wondered. But this episode made me feel like, okay, these guys, they have JeanLuc's back for sure. But they knock out the security, which explains why no one came to help. I'm surprised Chateau Picard doesn't have a security detail. I wonder if it does. Like, just dudes that... like, because Picard's a high-profile figure, and so you don't want just people... although, Dodge just randomly beams into his estate, and so does Jurati. So maybe in the future, like, it doesn't matter. You could just beam into a celebrity's estate. like on random. It could be that way. Who knows? Yeah. But anyways... so we get this one Romulan that hasn't been killed, and they tie him up in a chair. But that comes intercut between the Borg cube, and both scenes are kind of going back and forth, where Picard is interrogating the Romulan, Tal Shiar agent or whatever, or Zhat Vash agent, and Daj is questioning, what's her name?
I forget.
I keep calling her.
Romulan Mystic.
She's the Romulan Mystic, yeah. But I had her name earlier. Yeah. Anyways, whatever. So she, so it's intercut between that back and forth, and the Zhat Vat already knows somehow whatever Daj and Soji are, they're tied into some kind of ancient prophecy because.
Here's what makes it. Can I just point out something I can't get my mind around? I really just can't understand what's going on here. So you got these Romulan agents, right? This task force.
So, supposedly the Zhat Vat.
Supposedly. But what we do know is that they are under the command of Rizzo, who is she's Romulan now. She's back on the cube,
and ultimately under the command of O, because O's seems to be the higher ranking person.
Yeah. But here's the thing. These Romulan agents, and with this interrogation, we find out they're looking for Soji, right? They're looking for Soji. Doesn't Rizzo know that Soji is on the cube? And isn't she in charge of these guys? What's the ruse here? I don't get that. Why are they looking for her when they know where she is? And here's another thing.
It's a really good question.
Obviously, these Romulan agents are constantly beaming down and attacking, for some reason not able to beam anything up. That's a problem. But here's another thing. Sorry, I got to go on a little tangent here. If they're so desperate to kill Picard, which I don't think was the intent here, and I'll say why in a second. If their intent was to kill Picard, he would have been dead. Now, we had that meeting earlier between Verity and O. This attack happens. You know, nobody's really killed or hurt. Picard's just thrown. I mean, he could have easily been killed, right?
You're saying it's so that they could trust Verity.
So they could trust Verity.
Interesting. That's a really interesting theory because it doesn't add up.
Because
it doesn't add up otherwise.
Exactly, because the Romulan who's being interrogated.
I don't want Verity to be a bad guy.
I don't know. I don't understand why Picard isn't cautious about this whole acid spitting thing when he knows full well that that's what they're capable of. He stands right in front of him like he doesn't care. And of course he does spit the acid later, but it's like the Romulan guy doesn't do it right away just to, consecrate the ruse. I don't know if that's the right word. Just
fascinating. Yeah, it's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, and then Verity walks in. I didn't know.
Interesting.
Hope I had stunts at it, playing all dumb and stuff.
You've successfully made me suspicious of Verity, which I was not. I love her. I love Agnes.
I do not trust her at all. And wow. Guess what? Rafi doesn't trust her, and I trust Rafi more than I trust her.
Oh, it's true. Rafi's like, what the fuck, Jean-Luc? By the way, if anyone has a problem with swearing, Rafi just like lets him out one after another. She says bullshit. She says like like a lot of things. I'm adding a lot of bad words that she didn't say, but
PG-13 language has always been okay in Star Trek in the movies and stuff. So
yeah. No, I'm vibing with it. I'm vibing is the word I think I like to use about all these quote unquote changes or differences or new things or whatever. That's crazy. I had not thought about that. That's an interesting observation, and I like it and I don't like it at the same time, only because I really want Agnes to be a good character. Oh, PJ, what have you done to me?
But Verity / secret Bruce Maddox in a synth body. Yeah.
Audience, what do you think of these? Are these wild theories? Am I insane, or are we insane? Or do you think that you're seeing this too? Because I'm seeing it, PJ. I'm seeing what you're seeing. I see it. It's interesting. Yeah. This is fun. So then what happens is now Rios hails them and he's like, "Yo, it's getting crazy. You got to come up to the ship." And Picard's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "My sources tell me this." And then they beam up to the so then he's like, "Okay." So they have time to repack the terrine and the baguette, by the way, because when he beams onto the Sarita, he has his little bag that Zhaban gave him.
Well, you're skipping that whole thing with the destroyer stuff.
Oh, sorry, we did skip that. Because I don't know what it can mean. But we do find out that
her name is Ramda.
Ramda, that's right. Yeah. Ramda says that she says something interesting, which suggests there's like a temporal thing going on, perhaps.
She's like, I'm talking to you tomorrow. I don't like this kind of writing and language like that they're using.
Like, I know you tomorrow.
This mystical fantasy kind of stuff. I don't like it.
I love it.
And it's some kind of like pre-test. If it's one of these time travel predestination paradox things, oh man, I'm so sick of that stuff. But
I really hope it doesn't go time travel either. I agree.
Here's my theory about why she's triggered by. I don't think the cards are magical. I think she was triggered by the twin one because it reminded her of the fact that because she's a Romulan who was assimilated and Romulans possibly accidentally created the Borg, that she may recognize Soji as not necessarily the daughter of Data, but actually the Borg queen herself.
Interesting.
And that's the theory. I have no idea. I pulled that right out of my keister.
That's an interesting one. I don't know. I love your theories. I'm so dumb.
Because why would
these theories? Like I'm like, whoa, where did these come from?
Why would she and the Romulan guy who before he kills himself both say she's the destroyer, And I think he was just waiting to kill himself just to say that. Like, I think he knows full well where she is, and this is all just a weird kind of ruse.
Maybe they're trying to lure. Maybe they're trying to lure Picard into this somehow.
I actually think Daj, in the end, was probably completely inconsequential. That it's all Soji.
That makes me so sad because I really love Daj.
And here's the twin theory. Perhaps Daj was the true daughter of Data, and Soji has nothing to do with that. Soji is a completely different thing.
Well, but then we go back to Agnes talking about the... again, if we don't trust her, we don't have to believe what she said. But she did say that, like, Maddox was working on this process, but it involved... that the way that it worked was that you would make it would make a twin brain, a twin cyber positronic brain. So I think that might kind of lend back to them actually being sisters. I thought another weird scene that I didn't talk about was when she's talking to her. Oh, I guess that comes next. Sorry. But so anyways, we find out she's the destroyer, and Picard.
The very next scene after the Romulan dies and the intercuts between that and the Borg cube with the woman with the gun, the very next scene after that is it's back in the Borg cube. They detain the woman, and Hugh blames the guy who didn't holster his weapon properly and all this. But then there's a scene where Soji is in her room talking to her fake mom, who is so boring, she actually puts her to sleep.
That's not what I think happened.
I know.
but I like that. That's a good joke. But it's interesting. The mom was able to also control the mom character, which is fake, was also able to control Daj in a similar way, where she was able to make her focus. And activated some kind of mode in her or whatever. So the mom character is interesting because it's an AI of some kind. It's not real. It's like a hologram or what. It's another holographic type character. But they both believe that that's their real mom. And in this case,
I think that's the Borg communicating with her.
Wow.
I think that's a digital concept.
You really thought this out. That's crazy shit.
Oh yeah, and then
would you be really mad? Would you be really mad if it's control?
Oh God, please no.
You would be mad, wouldn't you? You didn't like control.
No.
You're like, please don't.
Narek walks in and he whispers in her ear, "Hey babe, I think I'm in love with you. I've only known you 3 days." Where's that accent? You're really good with the accents. That sounds like a Liverpudlian accent or something like that. And then she's like, "I love you too, darling." But anyway, that's really that's so dumb. I mean, everything between them is just it's gross. I love it. So, some people believe. Some people actually believe that he is actually really in love with her, and that's not the case at all. He doesn't seem to be in love with her, but do you think he's falling in love with her? Like, do you think he's starting to see her? Like, do you think he's compromised in the sense that she's getting to him? Well, you know what? I would have thought that, but the very next scene, he's got some serious incest vibe with his sister, man. She's smelling him and stuff like a jealous girlfriend. By the way, what's going on in the background? Is the Borg ship reconfiguring itself in the background? Like, I was curious about that. Like, did you notice that at all? I didn't notice it because I was so grossed out by these two assholes. But I know what you're talking. I know there's things floating around in the background. Yeah. In the background, it almost looks, and sometimes, like in some of the shots in this episode, it felt like there was transformations happening a little bit, but it was subtle. Like I really have to watch this again to kind of like go back and watch that scene between two of them, because I'm not joking. There was two or three times I thought she was gonna like grab him by the dick or like kiss him or something like this. I was just waiting for it. I knew it wasn't going to get to like Game of Thrones level, but I knew they were like doing some Game of Thrones shit here, and I did not like that at all. It really bothered me. Not necessarily because like I can handle it in Game of Thrones, but not here. Not here. No.
I feel like Lursa and B'Etor were kind of incestuous, but like light incestuous. You know what I mean? Like they had a kind of a weird vibe.
I'm gonna throw up.
It's true. It's kind of so okay. Now are we now at the my favorite scene of of the episode? Are we there yet?
Which scene is that? Oh, the one where Verity asks. She's like, I gotta go because I'm the best scientist there ever was. I'm not Bruce Maddox. I assure you of that.
She's like. She really, she's bad. She's really like smart too because she's totally doing everything to convince Jean. Like she's playing off of JeanLuc's whole vulnerability of like, how she like praises him. She's like top. She is like kind of like reminiscent of like the kind of people that JeanLuc used to kind of like. She's a fangirl. She's totally like a fangirl. But everyone's secretly a fan in this episode. Like come on, like everyone's a fan of JeanLuc.
Unless you're the $23.99 equivalent of a millennial, then you don't know who the hell Picard is. They're like,
well, that would be Daj. Daj did, but Soji's gonna be like, "Who are you?" No, I think he's that famous that everyone knows who JeanLuc Picard is. It would be like not knowing. Who would it be like not like who would be who's the most famous person on our planet at the moment? Would it be like the Queen of England?
The most famous person on our planet right now is
like where you could
someone who I refuse to name, and you probably can guess who he is.
Oh, does it have to do with the country I live in?
Yeah, but anyway, let's not go there. But can I say something about the communicator?
Yes.
There's a thing with the communicator, the one from the movies.
Yes.
It does something I've never seen it do before.
Right now, by the way. But yeah, what does it do?
It lights up when what's his name? Rios calls him. It glows. Did you notice that? Yeah.
No.
Look at it. Yeah. I'm looking at it right now.
You just saw it glow, right? You sure? It's here. I'm making mine like reflect light right now, and it looks like it's glowing. You sure it's not just reflecting a light at the same time? It's like a coincidence.
I'm gonna look at it there again and freeze frame it. There it is. Yeah. It could be a reflection of light, but it looks like it has like a glow in the middle or something. It could be just a reflection. I don't know. It's not a nitpick or anything. I was just wondering if
you watch the video,
I was seeing things.
If you watch the video version, skip to 1 hour 26 minutes just to see mine glowing and tell me if it's similar, because I'm wearing the same comm badge right now.
Okay.
Although I will say I've seen like the replica I have is nice and everything, but I think the inside's not actually supposed to be shiny. It's supposed to be reflective, but not as shiny as mine is. So mine reflects a little more light than it should, in my opinion. But whatever. The nitpickers. I'm a nitpicker. So anyways, she convinces him that she should go too. But then my favorite scene is when they are all together finally on the ship. I loved all the stuff with Rafi and how like she's like kind of. I just love that it all came together for Picard, not the way he wanted, but here he is on a fucking starship. By the way, earlier when he first meets Rios, I also love the scene where Rios invites him to sit down and he walks past Rios's captain's chair and the music is the music from like, the movies are like da 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 da, whatever and then he kind of looks at it kind of and then pauses and then walks past it. It was kind of very sentimental and sad. But also here it's like they're on the ship finally, we find out that something about the free cloud is really freaking compelling to Rafi, so much though that she makes it clear that like, hey, I'm not actually joining you, I'm just hitching a ride, I'll help you as far as the free cloud and then you're on your own. And then, which I don't believe her, I think Rafi loves JeanLuc and she will not abandon him. I think that's part of her character's, thing. Rios, and then the whole thing with Agnes, which now I see it a whole different way that I didn't see it before, which is crazy. You've done this to me, PJ. Thank you. Now I'm like,
She's literally the devil in a blue dress.
Oh my God, stop it. Stop it. You're so good at this. Oh, man. And then, go ahead.
Yeah, they all get together, and everybody knew it was going to end this way, where it was going to be like engaged. That was it.
Felt great. It just so that's what I love, is that like everyone kind of, he's like there. He's got his crew. He's got his ship. This is like JeanLuc. This is like when like he's unstoppable in a sense. You know what I mean? Like when JeanLuc has like, it's like. She refers to him earlier in the last episode, I think it was, or maybe in the first episode. She refers to him as the Hermit of Labar, but she also says, all these years we thought he was mothballed, which is what you call a ship that's out of service, right? Okay. Which is like, I just love it. I loved it. I like ate this shit up. I actually started yelling like, fuck yeah, when he says engage and the ship warps and we hear the music from TNG, and it was just like so great, and I was like so high from it, just like a nice moment for me. And then the episode ends, boom. Yeah. So we get we are now caught up with the people that saw the first 3 episodes at the premiere, and so everything from this point on is new territory for a lot of people. Will Wheaton of course has seen them all, and of course a lot of people on the inside, but for the rest of the world, this is now all new territory, and it's just, I'm thrilled. I for my part, I wrote this on Twitter earlier, but like, I'm living my best life, PJ. That is all
I certainly like discussing the episode more than I like watching it.
That makes me happy. But so I asked you earlier, and I think you kind of avoided it, but that didn't give you any of the feels the first time you saw that, like the engage and the ship warping and the music?
Yeah, I knew. Well, besides knowing it was going to end that way anyway, because of time.
Right.
I was so frustrated with the episode, and like the intercutting between the whole tarot card thing and the interrogation scene. The whole thing was just it was annoying. They're hammering a point home twice, for what reason I don't know.
Dramatic effect.
It's overdone. And the thing about this, it took 3 episodes just to get off the ground, and there's still more setup and introduction to go. And I understand that this is a hyper serialized show and it's very, very slow, but the least they could have done was release this 3 episodes as like a film, because that's what it is. This is a big 3-parter, this thing. It's much like what Star Trek Discovery did with the first 2 episodes in the first season. The only difference was you could watch both of those in the same night, and it was more satisfying that way, because traditionally a 2-parter opening of a show is a Star Trek show is what the fans want, and this was first a 2-parter. This Hannah Lee Culpepper was supposed to direct 2. They stretched it out to 3, and you can kind of feel that. And I liked episodes 1 and 2. Thought it would get going, but it slows down a lot here, and I just really wanted it like to just get going. And when certain things are brought up, like I said before, about how Rafi's talking about this evidence of collusion, and it's brushed over, and it's like, no, you're just deliberately holding that off for story reasons, and I don't like that. It doesn't feel real to me for some reason. But I do like Rios. He's cool, except he's a little over. That whole introduction was weird. I like the conversation between him and Picard, though. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I think that for me, I'm a fan of this kind of pacing and serialized. Like some of my favorite shows, going back to that Stanley Kubrick analogy, some of my favorite shows, and I'm not saying I'm Stanley Kubrick and you're Steven Spielberg. You might be Stanley Kubrick and I might be Steven Spielberg. But some of my
I'm Greta Gerwig.
Excellent. Wait, Greta who?
I don't know.
Did you mean Greta?
No, I meant the director.
Hanley Culpepper.
No, Hanley Culpepper.
The director of this episode.
Yeah.
No, who's Greta Gerwig? I thought I knew who that was.
Greta Gerwig is a writer and director, I believe.
What
you're thinking of Greta Thunberg or something like that. Thunberg.
I know, for some reason that's why I thought of her. Thunberg. That's right. Okay. Anyways, going back to the thing I was trying to say is that like I think that the show, like I admit that I like the option to watch it all at once. You're right in the sense that it is more satisfying to have the whole show at once, but I am having fun waiting a week and thinking about it and just theorizing and all that stuff too. And on the other hand, go ahead.
I just believe that not the whole, not released the entire show at once. I just believe that this, how the first 3 episodes were basically screened as a movie to people first off in America. They didn't do that in the UK though. They only did the first episode. But the people who got to see it early,
really?
The people who got to see it early basically watched the first 3 episodes.
Such as, by the way, shout out to Starfleet Mom. She has been my Starfleet Mom since I joined Twitter as Starfleet Boy. She was there from the beginning, and she also got to see it. She was one of the people that got to see it on that premiere that you're talking about in LA. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
You were saying those people got to see it as the 3-parter as one event, like one presentation.
Yeah, and it, upon reflection of these first 3 episodes,
now that we've seen
watching them in the span of 3 weeks, I don't think would have been as effective as if they released the first 3 episodes as a feature. And on TV, it would probably run 2.5 hours with commercials. But on streaming or CBS All Access, it would run a solid about 2 hours, I believe. I'm not sure what 42 times 3.
I think it's going to be like, let me see here. Hold on.
124 minutes or something like that. 126 minutes.
Yeah. Which is a little under this episode of Starfleet. Because we're anyways, go on.
No, 126 minutes is
oh, you're right.
Is 2 hours and 6 minutes.
Yeah. So it would have run as a feature film, basically.
Yeah, and that would have been a much, I think, better approach, because fans could have absorbed this as like the prologue film to the series, and then episode 4 on it really gets going. But I understand their thinking, because they want to stretch it out and they want people to stay subscribed as long as possible. But I don't think it was necessary to stretch out the first 3 episodes the way they did. I think they should have presented it to the audience the way they presented it to the people who saw the feature film, basically prologue feature film version of series, because the show's just getting started now. They're only leaving Earth now. All 3 episodes was set up and build up and information dump, and which is cool. But I think if we had absorbed that all at once in like the first week, it just would have been better for me, at least. Because I hear you. Because at least the 3rd act, which is the 3rd episode, which I didn't like, probably would have played better for me. But the fact that I waited a week after an episode that I really liked to get an episode that really disappointed me was...
Well, I'd love to see you, if you have time. I don't know what your life is like, but maybe you watch the first 3 episodes now that they're all released and see if it plays differently for you. Personally, I like just on a very this is so absurd what I'm about to say, so I don't blame you if you hate me after I say this. But I want Picard all year round. So to me, stretching it out over the course of 11 weeks is heaven. It's I know for the next 8 weeks or 7, what's left? 8 or 7 episodes? 7 episodes?
7, yeah.
So I know for the next 7 weeks I get to have a 48 minute or 45 minute, complete escape from reality, and I get to go into this world and the fact that it and then afterwards, I'm so obsessed with it. I hope I continue to be. But afterwards, I look forward to watching the whole fucking thing in succession. like an 11-hour binge, where I'm just like insane at the end of it, like so I don't know. I can see both sides.
Do you remember back in the 90s when I don't know if this was like this in America, but they didn't do it for Deep Space Nine or Next Generation, only for the season premiere, the series premiere and the series finale. They did like a 2-hour movie, like in the schedule, like it aired back to back. There was no this episode and that episode. It all ran as one. I think they did that with Best of Both Worlds too the first time. No, they didn't. They didn't do that. No, it was another one. I don't know if it was. It was reunification, one of the other ones. But anyway, when Voyager came out, I always noticed, because whenever they did a lot of two-parters that always aired the same night, so it would be like Voyager TV movies. That's how they were listed, like Star Trek Voyager 2 hours and the name of the thing. And it wouldn't air as 2 episodes, it would air as like a straight 2-hour thing. Did they ever do that in the United States? I don't know.
Yeah, on like the later networks, like Spike Network did it, Sci-Fi Channel was doing stuff like that. Like, and sometimes you would have like marathon. Oh, one thing that you got from the classic series a lot on regular TV way back in the day was Star Trek marathons, where over the course of like a weekend, they just played Star Trek for like, I think it was like 12 hours, and then then like the next day they started again. So I definitely remember the Star Trek marathons. Those were awesome. I do remember that. So that was like a way to satisfy a binge kind of experience back then.
But when Voyager had the premiere of it was a brand new 2-parter, it would air the same night, like the 2 episodes.
That didn't happen for TNG at all. I am surprised that happened for Voyager, because you had to wait a whole summer before the show restarted.
I think I'm not talking about the 2-parters that ended at like one season to the next. Like, I don't know if Scorpion. I think Scorpion. I don't know if Scorpion's a 2-parter. I can't remember the names of them, but a lot of them were Borg. Some of them were Borg, like 2-parters.
Oh, like they did a 2-parter event that took place on the same night when it actually aired, like the first time is what you're talking about.
Yeah, and in like the TV guide, it would be listed like as a TV movie. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay, that's cool. I didn't see Voyager when it aired, so I don't remember that. But that is cool. I like that. That is a neat thing.
Yeah, sorry, we got off track there.
No, that was a good off track. It was Star Trek relevant, and it was like historical context, which I always loved.
Shows how old we are.
It shows how old we are. All you Dodges and Sojis out there.
In the paper TV guide that we used to read.
We're the old farts now. We're the Picards. No, we're the Picards and the Rafis. They're not old. Well, Picard is old, but Rafi's she's still in her middle age. She's like my age. Do we have anything else to say, or should we get to our ratings? Now, I don't know if you noticed, but I clandestinely didn't rate the last episode when we talked about it.
You forgot?
I forgot to rate it.
Oh.
So the very first episode I gave like an absurd rating, which was an infinity. And like the last episode, I'm just going to give a 10. And this episode, I also give a 10. So sorry, I know there's flaws, and you definitely pointed them out, and but they weren't enough for me to not love it. so I'm not saying that it's a perfect episode. I'm just saying that the hype is so real right now, and I have hype bias, recency bias, and all that, and I can't rate it anything lower than a 10.
Yeah, I almost wish I could wait like 3 weeks from now. I'd like avoid it for 3 weeks and just watch a new, like all 3 episodes as new. That I really want to do that. Not in any kind of spite, like I'm sick of this show. I'm gonna take a break.
Just satisfy what you were saying earlier, right? Like, because
I don't like. I'll be totally brutally honest here. I do not like watching this show weekly. I wish I could just not. I was gonna say put myself in a coma. I wish I could just sleep. I wish I could just sleep and wake up 3 weeks later and go to the hospital. Can you please induce a medical coma? And
3 weeks.
They put me in a straitjacket.
Oh my gosh. Well, when you come out of your coma, you would be welcome on Starfleet, boy, and you'll have an interesting perspective that no one else will have.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to joke about comas.
No, I know. I appreciated it, even though it.
But you know what I mean? Like I would love to have the will to avoid Twitter and all that, but I can't. It's like I got to be in on the game, man. I got to know what's going on.
It's really hard. It's really hard, man. It's so hard, but I've been managing to avoid spoilers pretty darn well, and I'm proud of myself. But I'm also missing out on a lot of fun shit. Although I get some things like the cheeky feckers came to my plate and stuff like that. But I'm going to catch up on Twitter tomorrow. I'm going to have a couple of drinks tomorrow night and just go hard and see what's going on. Because I
went hard on Twitter about this episode, especially about the vaping. I was like, fuck effing this and fuck off and with this bullshit vaping. And
you were offended.
I was. Yeah, that's the thing about this episode. It the first time I watched it, it angered me. Second time I watched it, it wasn't any better. And then I did watch it a third time. I was like, okay,
oh, wow.
I know what to expect now. It's a little bit better, but those scenes that I talked about in this long discussion still bother me.
But you still also, I feel like you had not a lot, but you had some things that that maybe later when we have the whole show behind us, that you'll look back on this episode and go, okay, there were some valuable things that like helped later on, but who knows? So what do you rate? So am I going to be shocked at is it going to be so extremely opposite of mine? I'm so curious.
Oh, yeah.
What your rating is.
Yeah, I'm not going to be. I'm sick of being nice and forgiving. If you know what, here's the thing. The last 3 weeks, 4:30 in the morning is when I get it, right? On a Thursday morning, 4:30, I wake up like a kid at Christmas.
We have a similar. I just want to say it's very similar on this end.
and go to watch it. And the first time I did it, beautiful, had a great time. Second time, loved it. And then this time, and I even asked myself, was I in a bad mood? Like, was there something wrong with me? I was like, no, I was pretty goddamn happy when I woke up. And then I was watching it, and my heart sank. Like, there were just choices and character choices and things with the writing. And like, yeah, I don't want to go over all that again. But I've said it all pretty much.
You said it all. We've said both our
and Rizzo and Narek. Oh God, they make me sick. And it's not like I love to hate them. No, I just hate them.
I think you're supposed to. I think you're meant to. But that remains to be seen.
Yeah.
I think we're meant to not like them. But anyway,
so my score is, God damn. I'm going to be generous. I'm going to be really generous. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10.
My heart just skipped a little bit because I really thought you were going to go down to like a 1 or something. So I'm so glad that it's like a 4. I was like, he's going to totally like counter my 10 with a 1 here. And I'll be like, oh, that's sad. So that's cool. 4. Well, it kind of, I feel like that's fair. It reflects the discussion we had. So yeah,
I don't hate the show. I was just frustrated with this episode. I'm still looking forward to.
It wasn't your episode, and that's gonna happen.
It wasn't my cup of Earl Grey decaf.
A very great Earl Grey decaf. I love it. There's do you watch Doctor Who?
No, but funny enough, it was the very first television show that I ever watched. Like going back to 3 years old, we had 2 channels, and CBC. Channel 3. I was channel 8. I don't know. Whatever channel it was only 2 channels. I used to watch it. It was the black and white version, and those robots, those weird robots. What are they called again?
The Daleks. The Daleks.
Yeah, the Daleks. Those were the first things in media that I ever had like persistent nightmares about. But I love this show anyway.
That's awesome.
But I never watched it as an adult. So
Doctor Who's 5th season, in my opinion, 5th series in the new Doctor Who is what I call a perfect season. It was just like every episode was just note per note excellent, and like it was episodic, but there was like a thread that wove through, and at the end it just like blew your mind how everything tied together. So if you ever see it, I'd be curious to see what you think. But anyways, that's my opinion about that. and I've never. That's rare. I don't think any other show's ever been like that for me. And I'm pretty sure there's going to come an episode of Picard where I'm not going to give it a 10. I'm like I'm not.
You're going to give it a 9.9. You're going to hate
whatever.
You're going to hate an episode. And you're going to say, "Damn it, 9.9."
Relatively speaking, that would mean a lot for someone who's giving all these 10s, right? Like that's a big fall if you think about it. So I'm open to that possibility, but I also am hopeful that it could be a perfect season. But who knows? We'll see. But definitely, that's a rarity. I don't think that happens often in TV, at least not in my experience. Battlestar Galactica, I think, might come close. I really love Battlestar Galactica, the reimagining that Sci-Fi did. But anyways, so a 4 and a 10. So what's the average there, huh?
7.
7. So this episode of Star Trek Picard gets a official boonk combined rating of 7. I just did a effect that has no. I stamped a 7 on the screen, but it's not going to really happen. I apologize. I don't have special effect. So a 7 for us. PJ, I really loved hanging out with you and talking Trek after Picard. We got to try to get more people on.
How many people can you do this with? Like,
well, I think I'm gonna start paying for it, and I think you can do as many people as you want. You can have like 5 or 6 people, so we'll try it out. So we'll invite some other folks. Maybe Fathery will want to come on, and we'll do a reunion of how we were doing the short treks, which was a lot of fun. So that would be cool.
It seems like a much easier process.
Yeah. Let's see what the outcome is. Right. We'll find out in about an hour when I edit and publish this. So, do you have anything to promote this week? Anything you want to talk about? Anything you want to shed some light on, or give out any shout outs?
Well, I'm doing stand up at the Apollo all week now.
And I was so excited. I was like, "What?" And then you said the Apollo, and I was like, "Oh."
No. I just want to say that I like the Irish EMH. He's like, I don't know what he says about Picard and Angels, but he's like,
oh yeah, he's with the Angels or something like that. You haven't helped someone like that in a long time.
JeanLuc Picard, sure he's with the Angels. You got to, sure he's your hero, me boyo. Oh, don't you just love him? Oh, did. But anyway.
Your Irish accent to me is pretty good. Like
that's an extremely like that. There's different.
I know you ended it with that tahai, which is probably not anything an Irish person would ever say.
But Laris has a more Irish accent like this, where it's more pronounced. But it's not thick.
I'd like to give a shout out to Linda Butler, who started the Cheeky Feckers hashtag. I thought Trek on the Tube started it, so I was giving him credit, but it was actually Linda Butler on Twitter.
Yeah.
But I'd also like to give a shout out to everyone who did one when I tagged them in it, like especially Corey, who apparently was talking about the different regions. And so I think he said that
many different Irish accents.
Right, but I think he said that Laris has a Cork accent, right?
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken. But County Cork. Anyways, I don't mind all these Irish people in Star Trek. I kind of love the Irish. As I stated on the Twitter earlier today, I actually dreamt about living in Ireland when I was a wee bairn.
Oh, boy, you're going to have to work on your Irish accent.
I know, it's terrible.
It's terrible. What are you thinking? What are you thinking, my boy?
My Irish accent is tainted with that American shite. I've been living in America for too long. It's America. I forgot about that. But I'm a big fan of...
Let's end this show on a song. In Dublin's fair city. No,
I don't know that song. That's terrible. But I do... Oh, wait. I want to also say that... huge news for me. I love scores and soundtracks, and tomorrow we're going to get volume 1 of the Picard soundtrack.
Oh, cool.
So I've already pre-ordered it, which I'm excited about. I can't wait to drive to work and listen to Picard soundtrack and just be in like a just state of bliss as I've been. So thanks for putting up with, by the way, my extreme hype here. but that's something I tried to rein in, and I appreciate you putting up with it. PJ, again, so much fun.
Yes,
dude. It really has been. So, audience, we'd love to hear what you think in the comments below. So everybody live long and prosper, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.